Welcome. I'm so glad you came here to join me. We're upgrading some of my old Photoshop tutorials because I have Creative Cloud and I want to go ahead and make sure that my students don't get a little too confused. And plus, it's a good chance for me to kind of get used to Creative Cloud. So we're going to work on this quick gold text tutorial. And we're going to work on several layers, and we're going to use layer styles and colors and gradients for what we're about to do. I just want to point out what we're going to do is basically create these two separate layers and have them overlap. Obviously, the gold one on top of the shadow one, and it'll be offset by a pixel here and there. And it's going to apply some shadow. And so let's just do this now. So in the new Creative Cloud, if you've never done this before, you'll have some fun with this. I bet some of you had some issues the first time. I'm going to click on Web because this is Web Graphics assignment. I'm going to use the Web Most Common, and we're going to give it a title. And it's Quick Gold. And I'm just going to do this preset right here. And I'm going to click Create. Bam, there we go. If that just doesn't disappear, you can just close the window and it should pop up. First thing we want to do is let's copy this graphic here as a reference. So I'm just going to right click and copy the image. And I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to paste. So Control V will paste. And there it is. Now, this is on this layer one, and this is not what I want. And I think it's a good idea to create a background layer. So we're going to create a layer. I'm going to drag it to the bottom, and we're going to change the name to background. And the background layer is going to make use of a gradient. It's going to be a radial gradient. As you can see here, right around where my cursor is, it's slightly lighter, and then it's darker over here. So in order to do the gradient, I like to work off of the color. And use the color picker if I have that available. So I use the color picker, I click right there. There's your color code 41372D if you want to know exactly what I'm using here. That's the foreground and the background color. I'm going to click over here, and this hexadecimal code is 131210. I click OK. Now I don't need this layer, so I'm going to hide it. I'm going to click on background layer so I have it selected, and we're going to get our gradient. The gradient tool is right over here. And you have gradient, paint bucket, 3D material drop tool, which I've never tested with, but it sounds like a lot of fun. But we're going to use the gradient tool, old school. And we're using the radial gradient, so you want to make sure you click on here. You also notice here the lighter colors here and going to darker color, which means where you start clicking is where that lighter color appears, and where you let go is where it's gone. So I'm going to click and I'm going to head over towards one of the corners, but not go all the way. So about like that. And you can just eye it. You let go, you can see there's a bit of that. It's kind of like there's a slight soft light shining on the background. And so that's what we're aiming for. By the way, the best way to tell if you've done this tutorial right is to make sure you try the exact same colors that are on there. And so the next thing we're going to do is write out some text. And so I recommend you put down maybe your name or some way of just making this more original. It's going to be gold, and I think it's good to pick a nicely styled font like what you see here. This is not the time to do chiller or the dreaded font, which shall not be named, aka Comic Sans. Anyway, and so let's take a look at what fonts that we have available. So we're going to get our type tool out. And one of the things is when you use your type tool, it'll create a new layer. So the first thing I want to do is check and look at some of the fonts that I have available. And they say on that tutorial to use the Trajan Pro. There is no Trajan Pro that's on default. I have a PC, so that might be part of the reason why. And there's one that says Trajan color. Unfortunately, they've already like basically given some of the color. So you lose out on working with the layer styles, and it may not turn out quite right. So I'm going to use a different one. I want one that looks kind of elegant, looks fancy. And so I think a good substitute could be, for example, Perpetua titling. And I think that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to click on it. And I want a nice big font. I'm going to click here and see how tall that text is in comparison. And so I'm going to write 100. And I'll notice when I type the characters out here, I believe it's using this color here because that was the foreground color. So we're going to change that to more gold text, sort of. So I'm going to grab a nice light. That might be a good one to start with. I'm just eyeing it right here. And so what I want to do is I actually want to work on 3 different layers. I think this could be larger. So I'm going to highlight it. And it's always good to highlight it and then make it larger. And we'll try 72 pixel point font. Even that looks a little on the small side. I'm going to highlight this number and type in 125. Hit enter. That I like. This might end up being a little too big. Let's see if what we can fit in here. And what I want to do is I want to, when I create my layers, I want them to be on separate layers, each word on its own layer. Because we're going to end up doing a little drop shadow. And so the drop shadow is going to kind of appear over the other text to give it a real 3D look. I know 3D is not in vogue anymore, but we're ready for it to come back. That's what I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off of this, pick a different tool. I did the move tool, so we're good. I'm going to get my type tool. Type tool is an interesting thing. If you see there's a box around it, a little tiny dotted box, notice it goes away when I get close to my other text. So if I click here, I'm actually selecting the text on that layer. But if I deselect it, move away, and I see that box, if I type, you'll see there's a layer 2 that's now appearing. So now I'm going to go ahead. So 100 visions. I'm going to move that a little bit, like so, over here. And then we'll add guy over here. That's me, the 100 visions guy. All right, so he's here, doing here. Okay, so now this, we're going to probably want to adjust this. If you can see, it's kind of hard to read the text, but let's see if doing our styles enables it to look right. So we're just going to go ahead and go with this. And at this point now, we're ready to start moving, we're ready to start applying our styles. Notice at this point, I've got 3 different layers. From bottom to top, the background, 100 visions guy, and we don't need that layer anymore, but we might bring it back for like other uses. All right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and start applying some layer styles. You're actually, for each one of these, we're going to do 2 separate ones. So we're actually going to duplicate this layer. So I'm just going to right click and choose duplicate the layer. And it says 100 copy. And I'm going to move it so the copy is underneath. And so the 100 is where we're going to style it using layer styles to look gold. And then the one underneath it is going to be the drop shadow look. So we're going to go ahead and create our settings. Before I do that, I just want to point out, once you create layer styles for one layer, you can apply it, you can copy it and paste it onto other layers. So that's one of the things that we're going to do in this tutorial. So I'm just going to work on 100, and once I get that all right, I can apply those styles to the remaining ones. Just so you know, I've added a layer here. What I did is I copied the article we're looking at. I copied this image, which basically shows all of the settings for the layer styles. So everything I get is going to be off of here. And so all I had to do was, for example, click color, and then hover, click on here. And I know now I have the exact color code for that particular color. So I will call out the color codes as I go, but I'm not going to keep coming back here. But I'll just walk you through each of the settings so you can follow along without having to see all of the extra work I do. So I'm going to click OK now that I have that color. And then I'm going to hide that layer. I'm going to go back to 100. This is the one on top. And what I'm going to do is add layer styles. Actually, I don't know if you can right-click and add a layer style, but I know you can click on FX down here. So you select the layer, you click where it says FX, and we're going to start with a color overlay, I believe is the first one we want to do. And we want to click in here. And what I want to do is I want to actually grab this color here. So it's FFE65E. It's the hexadecimal code for that color. Okay, so I'm back here. Instead of normal, we're going to use multiply. And right here at 100% opacity with that color. And then we're going to click on inner shadow. We're going to do that next. We click on here, and we're going to want to get a form of white. Okay, we'll get pure white. All Fs, 6 Fs. FF, FF, FF gives us white. Click on here. And we're going to do not multiply, but we're going to do screen. And then we are going to change the opacity here to 75%. I'm going to change our angle to 120. I'm going to do a distance of 0, a choke of 0, a size of 2. So we just changed the distance, choke, and size. So it's 0, 0, 2. And then we're going to use this straightforward contour, just normal. We're going to have a noise of 0. We could make that default if we plan on using it more, but I'm just going to leave it as is for now. And now we're going to add a drop shadow. So we go over here and we want to click drop shadow. We want to select it. And let's go ahead and set that now. So we're going to leave it at black. We're going to keep the blend mode at multiplied. This time we're going to change the opacity to 75%. And the angle is going to be 120. We're going to use global light. I'm going to set this to 1, 0, and 3 for size. And we're going to keep the contour as it is, a noise of 0%. We're going to use the layer knocks out drop shadow and click OK on there. And let's add our gradient overlay next. This next part here is probably the most technically challenging one, and that is we're going to create an original gradient here. And so we're going to have to put in some colors and some stops and things. But before we do, we want to change the blend mode. And the blend mode is just how we blend from one layer to the next. And so on here, we're going to use a hard light. So we're going to use hard light. We're going to do opacity of 100%. And now for the gradient, we're going to click in here. And on the gradient, we have stops and we have colors. So stops is up at the top. Colors is down here. The first color, what we're going to do is select this. And on this particular color, what we're going to do is we're going to make that color be the following. D0C492. D0C492. Click OK. That gives us the first color in our stop. And we're going to add another stop right about here. And this one is pretty much going to be white. So we're just going to click over to the far left. If it's not exactly white, that's fine. Click OK. And then we're going to add sort of an orange somewhere over here. So you notice how I just click down below. You can click and you can drag left and right. And then you click on color. And on this particular color, we're going to get kind of a bright orange. And so we're going to do that FAC03A. I'm going to click OK. And then on the far right, what we're going to do is we're going to change this color into just a darker version of that. And so this is A77C00. These are inexact. I'm actually just using the color picker off of the gradient we saw before. And we look here, the gradient looks kind of like this. We're going to, if you take a look, looks okay. I'm going to click OK on here for now and keep it like it is. We may want to make that a little darker. We might want to move the white a little bit to the right. So I'm just going to drag the white a little more over here and maybe even drag this one over here a little more. It's a little sharper at that edge on the gradient overlay. Nice, elegant, gold looking text. We're going to make it linear. We're going to align. We're going to do the align with the layer. And our angle is going to be 90 and a scale of 100%. And otherwise, that looks good. Let's just click OK and see what it looks like so far. Not bad, not bad. We got some more work we can do. Let's keep going. All right, we got two more layer styles on here to apply. So I want to go over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a stroke. Stroke is sort of an outline around it. If you notice when I clicked it, immediately added, it changed a little bit. Let's show without it and with it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add it here. On the stroke, we're going to get a size of 1. We're going to make it inside. We're going to do a normal blend mode. We're going to do 85%, not 100%. Scale it back a little bit. And for color, we don't want black. We're going to use another one of the orange colors, FEC955. FEC955. I'm going to click OK. All right, we've added that there, and it's just going to make sort of a little brighter edge on the sides. And then we're going to add a bevel and emboss, and this will be our last layer style for the outside. So I click on bevel and emboss. We're not going to select contour or texture. We go straight to bevel and emboss. We're going to make an inner bevel. We're not going to make it smooth. We're going to make a nice hard chisel. chisel out that, give it that gold chiseled effect. We're going to just ramp the depth up to 351 to heighten that chisel, to make it more extreme. And for direction, we're going to go down, not up. And we're going to set the size at 16. And the soften, we're going to keep it not softened at all. So that gives it sort of a hard chiseled look. That's right. And then we're going to add a little shading. On our shading, we're going to keep it 120. We're going to use the global light. We're going to keep that 30. In fact, so far everything is looking pretty much the same. But instead of screen, we're going to do hard light. And instead of white, what we're going to do is we're going to do sort of some of that yellow. So you notice a lot of golds around here. So this is FFBB4E. Click OK. So that's the hard light. And then we have shadow mode. We're going to make it multiply. And on this shadow mode, we're going to make it a little bit more mustardy looking. And that's a D4, B7, 39. I repeat, that's D4, B7, 39. Click OK. And click OK. And there's pretty much our gold text. Now, notice on 100, we have that applied, right? We've added all these effects. We want to add these same effects to Guy and Visions. But before we do, we should probably duplicate each layer. So I'm going to right click, duplicate that layer. So it's Visions copy. And I'm going to move Visions copy underneath. And I'm going to do the same thing for Guy. Right click, duplicate layer, click OK, drag the Guy copy down. And now, here we go. So I right click on 100. And I want to copy the layer style. And now I'm going to apply it to Visions, paste layer style. And I click on Guy, and I'm going to paste layer style. And now we have the layers for our top layer. So at this point, now what we want to do is on our duplicates, we're going to add the following effects. Not quite so many, so it won't take quite as long, but as you can see, it did take us a little bit to get this guy. Again, we're going to keep working off of 100. So now we're going to go to the 100 copy, and we're going to click Layer Styles. And let's go ahead and check the first one. We're going to start with adding a drop shadow. So on the drop shadow, we're going to make it multiply. This time we're going to make it 27 instead of 75. And we'll keep the angle at 120 using global light. This time we'll make it 7. For distance, spread is still 0. And the size this time will be a little bit smaller. We'll make it 2. So the drop shadow now, it pops out a little bit. You can already start to see this is already looking gold. And if you really wanted to stop here, you could. But hey, we're this close. Let's keep it going. All right, so the next time we're going to do a little bevel and emboss again. And this is going to be a lot different. So check this out. This is pretty cool. So what we want to do is we want to do not an inner bevel, but an outer bevel. Oh, look at that. Whoa, that's a little too much, but you can kind of see where we're going with that. If you want to make it pop out a lot more, you can make it look like that. That's a little too excessive for me. And so let's go ahead. We're going to make this smooth, not chisel hard. And the depth, we're going to basically scale that back down to 100%. And you can already see it's starting to get a little more under control. And we're going to do a direction up with a size of 4 and 0. By the way, look at what's going on with the square over here and show you what's kind of happening. We're getting really close. All right, for the shading, we want to keep it 120. We're going to use the global light. We're going to set this to 30, and the contour is going to be fun. I'm going to do this contour where it's sort of like this reverse sort of, I don't know what you call it. Anyways, that gloss contour. And on the hard light, we're going to change that to normal. And then we're going to adjust this just a little bit over here. Click OK. That's going to be FFD954. FFD954. Click OK. So that's normal and opacity of 15%. All right, on the shadow mode, the second one, we're going to keep it multiply, but we're going to make this a much darker color. So in this case, it's going to be a lot closer to the other. It's more brown. It's 4E2F01. That's 4E2F01. Click OK. Make it multiply, and we're going to set its opacity to 100%. All right, now we are almost there. You can already see this is starting to look a lot like that tutorial. And we're just going to add a stroke. a stroke of genius. All right, so we go to stroke, and we're going to change the size to 4 now. We're gonna dial it up a little bit. Its position is going to be center. Okay. And once we have it centered, we're going to blend it as normal with an opacity of 100%. And you notice it's starting to look ugly again, but we're going to change its color to that darker color that pretty close to what we did before. This time it's 3A1800. That's 3A1800. Click OK, and you are now done with those layer styles. They are drop shadow, stroke, bevel, and emboss. I already gave you all the numbers. You can always go back and take a look at those if you need them. We're going to go ahead and right click, and we're going to copy the layer style. So we right click, copy layer style, and we're going to apply it to visions. Now look at visions. In fact, let's zoom in on this before I do this, because I want to show you kind of what happens here. So I really want to focus. Sorry, I was trying to do that. I really want to focus on here, and I know it's kind of pixelated. It looks a little bit ugly, but check this out. When I go to visions copy and I right click and I paste the layer style, you see how you can see a little drop shadow there? See, that's where it's giving it that 3D effect, which is what I like about this tutorial. And let's just go ahead and we're just going to click resize window to fit, or let's just do fit screen. There we go. And there we have it. And now let's just add it to guy. Right click, paste, layer styles. There we have it. 100 visions guy. And whoa, now look at what happened here. I start to move it, and you see how that's kind of changing there? So one of the things you're going to want to do before you start moving stuff around is you want to link these together. I'm going to click on here just to kind of collapse those layer styles. We don't need to see all of those right now. We get them all collapsed, and so I want to link this with that. So I hold down Control, so I select both of them, and then I'm going to click on this little chain link here, and that links those two together. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not done. I forgot. There's one other thing. Hold my horses. Okay, so here we go. I forgot. This bottom layer is off. So you want to click the 100 copy. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the move tool. So I hit the move tool. And type V to get it. And now I'm going to move it. Click once to the right and once down. Okay, once to the right, one down. And let's do that for vision. I thought things looked a little off. One to the right, one down. And then guy copy, one to the right, one down. So we want that offset, and that's one thing we forgot to do. Now let's go ahead, we'll link those two together, because we don't want to link them until they have the offset. So now we'll click those two, we'll link those two together, and now we click these two, and we'll link these two together. So now when I move one, I move it all. I can also, undo that. I'm going to lock this layer because I don't want to do that again. So I click the lock, and that layer is locked. And now what I can do is I can highlight, select notice how all those layers are selected, and with my move tool now I can move it around a little bit. And so let me get this centered again, and let's just do that. And actually we could probably crop all this a bit. We don't need it quite so big. So I'm going to get the crop tool, and I'm going to just move over to the right, and let's crop this dude about like that. Hit enter. I think that looks pretty good. And we're good to go. So now we're ready to export this file. So you notice there's no longer any save for web and devices. So we can do a quick export as a PNG. We can save for web. We can do the old school way of saving for the web. And we can do just an export as, where we can choose the file format that we want to do. So we can make it PNG, JPEG, GIF if you want. SVG, I don't think this would go over very well as an SVG. But it would be good for JPEG or PNG. And of course, you could use this for posters and other things. The other thing is I highly recommend that you play around with this. Right now, this looks kind of ugly, right? Because guy is offset. It seems inconsistent. So I'm going to cancel that for a second. And what I want to do is modify this a little bit. And you'll notice there's these little things here. One thing you can do is you can click on here, hold down Shift, and hold on a second. So I select that layer, And I'm going to type V for move. And now I'm going to hold down shift while I move it, and I can move it a little bit better. So one of the things I want to do is get this so it's like all centered just right here. And then move it up so I get that little pink line right there. Okay, now I'm going to hold down shift, up 1, up 2, and then I'm going to do the same. Actually, I should have done it the other way around. I want to get visions, and I want to move it. I'm going to move this over maybe 1 character and a little to the right. A little bit more. All right, now I'm ready to export this dude. And I'm just going to do an export as. I'm going to choose file type, PNG. By the way, you can see the size that you're going to get. It doesn't give me the preview. Oh, there we go. 542K as a PNG. If we do on the artboard, if I click JPEG, 158K. Just note that JPEG tosses out some information you can't recover, whereas PNG retains all the information. So maybe it's a good idea to save a copy of each. So when you're ready, you just click Export All, and it goes ahead and creates an export. And you can go ahead and save it. You got that. If you want to export it as a different file type, you can just go Export. You can do the quick export as PNG. And we'll go ahead and save that in pictures. And then we'll save it as well. And then finally, the last thing you want to do is save this PNG file. So we're going to click File, Save. And we're going to call this quickgold.psd. It gives you the name we had from before. I'm going to click and add that to pictures. So now I have several copies here. I'm just going to click OK, use the default setting. And then let's go take a look at that in our folder. Here it is, Quick Gold as PSD, Artboard 1, Artboard 1. We can double click on it. We can take a look at it. And we can click on here. We can see the PNG version as well. So there you go. And at this point, you have the PSD in case you need to edit it some more and you want to play around with it some more. And you have the JPEG and PNG as web type graphics that you can turn into the assignment if you're one of my students. Otherwise, that's something you could display on a website or whatever. So stay tuned for more upgrades to my Photoshop tutorials. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for you. Thanks for watching.